Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew and today we're talking about VRR, low frame rate compensation, and other benefits that you have in your Xbox console. So, if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. You know this is an Xbox channel. Lately we've been doing a lot of PlayStation bashing, but trust me, it's just for fun. It really is just fun. I don't hate PlayStation, but let's emphasize the greatness of Xbox for a minute, let's take these wins that are beneficial for a lot of people. Me myself, I have been having a hard time dealing with playing 30 frames a second games for a while now. And this started before we even got 60 frames a second on these newer consoles. This is something that has been going on now since I would say at least since the Xbox One X. 30 frames a second games are just, they just feel like they look stuttery. They look stuttery when you play them. The motion, it kind of strains my eyes. It really does strain my eyes. So this is something that I could have fixed back then, and this really sucks. This really sucks. So today's video is about low frame rate compensation, VRR support, and why I think having a gaming monitor is pretty beneficial. Yeah, you can go out and you can buy like an OLED or something like that, because I feel like OLED has the best technology to run with VRR. With the QLEDs and the full array local dimming and all of that. With LCD screens, it's a trade-off. You want VRR, you're gonna lose your full array local dimming, or you're gonna lose something. The picture quality is just not going to, it's just not going to remain the same as you had prior to flipping that on. It kind of does mess with the experience. Whereas with OLED, you get instant pixel response time. You get to keep all of your color, all of your brightness. Everything gets to stay the same with your VRR, and it's cool. Like, I do like that. But OLED's an investment. OLED's an investment. There's no easy way to say that. Yeah, there's times during the year you're going to be able to get a sale. If you're wanting like a 65-inch TV or bigger, you're going to be close to $2,500 or more. If you want just a regular 55-inch or 48-inch or something, like, you're still paying over $1,000 for that experience when it comes to OLED. It's hard for me to recommend LCD screens that aren't monitors for use with VRR, because if you're losing your full array local dimming, then you are essentially losing your quality HDR. Like, you're losing it. It's gone. It's there's if your full array local dimming's not working, you're relying fully on backlit. Yeah, that just, it's not going to produce or give you the picture that you want to sacrifice something like, to me personally, I don't know if the trade-off will be worth it, so I don't recommend it. Now, with a gaming monitor gives you every single thing on your Xbox consoles that are built into them. You can use your 120 hertz, you can use your VRR, and you can get your low frame rate compensation. Now, I have been testing this a lot. To bring you the best information that I can to see if it is, and I've tried it over a countless amount of days now, so that I can bring you solid information. So this is my method for testing it. I will purposely play a 60 frames per second game, something with a solid frame rate, everything. I'll play that for a while, and then I'll switch to a game that is 30 frames a second with low frame rate and low frame rate compensation kicked in and VR and everything on. And after playing a 60 frames a second game, you should have a hard time adjusting to that 30 frames a second. It's always been that way for me. And what happens is with that low frame rate compensation kicking in, it's not giving you 120 FPS. Like it's not doing that. Like you can tell the difference between 120 FPS and how it feels versus 30 frames a second. Now, what the new Xbox controllers with the new consoles, they have this thing. It's called DLI, Dynamic Latency Input. You can look this up. You can see for yourself. Is what it does is it will predetermine and like kind of just send it, it'll send the input right when it's needed, as opposed to it being, like I guess it used to be like it would send it like earlier or send it late or something like that, so it would just feel a little bit off. But dynamic latency input combined with your low frame rate compensation, it does actually help the game feel a little better. Now, I'm not saying it feels like 60 frames a second, but it does feel close enough to where you're like, okay, yeah, this doesn't feel like I'm running around in mud. Because that's kind of what it feels like going from 120 hertz or 120 frames all the way down to 30 frames a second. It feels like you're running in the mud. You've had that problem, like when you're playing a game and you'll drop to sub 30 frames a second and it just gets all like, oh man, it feels terrible. So when you're using your 120 hertz mode with VRR enabled on even Xbox One S, you heard that right, Xbox One S. I no longer have access to an Xbox One X, but I do have access to Xbox One S, and I did test this for a little while yesterday, and it works. It works. Games that are 30 frames a second, like I said earlier, they have this like it looks like a screen judder, especially when you pan the camera. When you pan the camera, it looks like it's start stopping it's a judder. It looks like a judder. It feels like a judder. It is, and it gets really distracting on your eyes, and it's really hard to follow what's going on there, and you lose a lot of being able to really enjoy like a smooth experience with that judder. And I don't know why they call it cinematic, because it doesn't look cinematic to me. It looks freaking juddery. Like I can't do it. Like it's too hard. But if you have the 120 hertz mode enabled and you have your VRR enabled, it gets rid of that judder. It makes that judder so much better. You can actually look at it and you can follow along on any place in the screen you want to. You don't have to stare right at the freaking at the character. Now this has really become a problem for me on the PlayStation 5. A lot of people are like, "Hey, guys, you just sent me into the PlayStation 5." The judder on the PlayStation 5 is bad. Okay, like on the 30 frames per second games. The fidelity of these new consoles, the graphics fidelity that these new consoles can put out, it intensifies that judder for me. Like it intensifies that. Now, I really hope that PlayStation will 100% support low frame rate compensation and VRR to its fullest max, like even the Xbox One S can do. I would really appreciate that, because this is kind of a big thing, and I don't understand why all of the experts that have been out there, telling us about our games and our consoles and all of this stuff, like, why do they gloss over this? Ask yourself that. Why do they gloss over something that is truly can give you a better experience? Now, yes, there are some downsides to this, because as your good buddy over at Digital Foundry, John Linneman's always talking about, like the persistent motion blur and stuff like that. It does add to that in certain cases, like it does. It's not as bad on OLED as it is, like, say, on my monitor. Like you can kind of tell a little bit. Like it makes it so smooth looking. I mean, just before I started, I was playing around with Elden Ring on the Xbox Series S. And I got the low frame rate compensation kicked in. I'm playing the game and I'm having a decent time, and it's smooth. It's staying smooth the whole time. Like the image is smooth the whole time. I mean, the frame rate does fluctuate. Like it does, and like you can kind of feel it, but you can't kind of feel it. You can definitely feel it when you're in the quality mode. You can feel it more in the quality mode than you can when you're in the frame rate mode. Frame rate mode on the Xbox Series S for Elden Ring, man, It does. Even on the PlayStation 5 with the VRR kicked in, the Series S version with the VRR and 120 hertz mode, like it feels better. Like it just, it, I mean, it looks smoother on the Xbox Series S all the time. All the time, it looks smoother. It doesn't give you any kind of fluctuations in the frame, like feeling like you're losing frames or anything like that, which is really good, especially for a game like that, like where you want a smooth picture, because once you get into like how the how your weapons work and all of that stuff, then you can learn you'll learn to time them, but the picture will always just be smooth, and you need something like that for a game like Elden Ring. Like you want to be able to feel like you're playing a smooth experience, and it helps with that. I put in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. That game on the Series S, it is a locked 30 frames a second, but it does feel smoother. On the Series X, whoa, dude, that freaking thing is great, man. It's really super smooth now, and it's like, wow, this low frame rate compensation is freaking amazing. It's freaking amazing. It really does help with. I mean, I don't know if this is a problem for you, but like I said, 30 frames a second judder is, oh boy, it's tough on my eyes. So it's just another one of those things that it's like, wow, man, this is actually a pretty cool feature and it works. So I recommend you give it a try. And like I said, my testing method is to play a 60 frames a second game and then quick resume right over to a 30 frames a second game, just so you can see if you can adjust to it fast enough. If you can adjust to the 30 frames fast enough, that means it's working. If you can't, then it's not working for you. And this is on a game by game basis, because some games are going to feel a lot smoother because of motion shutter speed at 30 frames a second. If they have a long shutter speed, like something like Forza Horizon 5, you can play that game and it literally feels and looks so smooth on the Series S and X in 120 hertz mode. It's not even funny when you're playing 30 frames a second mode. It's insane. You get to keep all of your beautiful visuals and still feel like you're playing at 60 frames a second. So shorter shutter speed games, they're going to be you're still going to notice a little bit of flicker, but it's not going to be nowhere near as bad as not having it. Nowhere near as bad as not having it. Games that I tested today, I put in Moto MXGP 2021 to play as my 60 frames a second, standard, and then went back to 2019, and wow, it really does make a difference. Like it used to be pretty hard to play 2019. I would get like the motion, the judders would really affect me pretty quickly. But now with the low frame rate compensation, like you can tell because of the shutter speed. Like once you get over, like you can see the screen automatically change, and it doesn't. But once you start moving and playing and getting into it, like it's really quick to adjust to it. So it's like, wow, man, this is pretty cool. Like you can adjust a lot easier to it coming from a 60 frames a second game, and that's what you want to be able to do. You want to be able to adjust into playing another game without having to because seriously, like going from 60 frames a second to 30 frames a second, like it takes a minute for you. Like it's easier. Like if you start your morning and you start playing a 30 frames a second game, it's easier to adjust to it that way than it is to try to adjust to it after playing high frame rate games. Like it sometimes it'd make me sick. Like I'd be playing something at 30 frames a second, and then I'd go to 60 and I would start to feel sick. Or I'd be playing something at 60 and I'd go to 30 and then I'd start to feel sick. Like it would give me like some kind of motion sickness thing. But now, like it's changing. Like things are so much better because of low frame rate compensation, dynamic latency input on the Xbox, and having yourself a high refresh rate monitor. Like it's pretty cool. High refresh rate monitor or an OLED. Right now, I think you can probably get OLEDs on a pretty decent sale. Last year model like the CX, Vizio OLEDs, whatever. You can usually get a pretty good deal on them now. All of those TVs are compatible with the Xbox. My OLED works perfectly with my Xbox, as does my monitor. I will link a description for the monitor I have, to Amazon. It would be really nice if you could get on there and look, whatever. You could see something like that. They have plenty of monitors on Amazon that you can look for if you need something a little bit in a little bit better price range. The ones I bought, 400 for the 27 inch, and then 450 for the 32 inch. I like the 32 inch. For me, that's like the perfect sweet spot. Being able to sit there and play it. I mean, you see how it's like right behind me. Being able to sit there and play. It gives me that perfect angle for my eyes, to where the 27, it was good, but it just wasn't hitting that freaking spot for me that good. Like, I use this now more for my recording and stuff like that for my studio. So you just have to see what works for you, depending on your range where you're sitting. For me, for the 27 inch, I'd had to be a little bit closer than it was comfortable for me. With a 32 inch, I can be right at the perfect space. So I'll link that so that you can look at it. And there's also a link in there for Aniba. If you want to get on Aniba, find some cheap games, especially if you're into PC gaming, you can also get console cards, console codes, all of that. Pretty awesome, man. I have been using Aniba, so I do believe in this thing. Like, I've been using it. I've never got a bum code. I've been able to purchase exactly what I want at a reasonable price, and I already have these games. I've already bought these games on the consoles, and I paid full price for them. So I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel negative about it or anything. Because if they're like, oh yeah, man, if you buy the Xbox Series X version, you get dual entitlement with the last gen console. I was like, I'm not playing on a new gen console. I don't need that anymore. Give me dual entitlement for the PC. I'd be a lot more happy with that. And then that $70 would feel a lot better. So I don't feel bad for it. I've already given the developer the money. I've already paid for them, so I don't feel bad, because they're all about giving you a dual entitlement for their for their old console games. But I would much rather just have a PC code. So if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. I know I went a little bit on with this. If you have any questions about low frame rate compensation or dynamic latency input, or what kind of settings, or how to make your Series S or your X work with your monitor, feel free to ask me questions. I will answer them. I have no problem with that, man. You guys are my community. We're a whole community, man. I test this stuff because I have access to it. And then I let you know so that you can make a better, more informed decision on how to spend your money, or how to take your gaming in a new direction that's going to be more beneficial for you and help you. Because that's the best part about it. That's the best part about it, is having access to all of this stuff. Gives me a better understanding of how it works. And like I said, man, I've been testing this low frame rate compensation for multiple days now, just so I could try to understand if this is a placebo effect, or if this is actual something that is making a difference. I have come to the conclusion that it is making a difference. Whether it's going to be a big difference for you or not, it definitely made a difference in the way I can experience 30 FPS games and make them feel smoother with less jitter. So, like I said, if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Happy Mother's Day to everybody else that watches this. Have a good day. We'll see you in the next one.